Here's a sample of what you'll hear on this episode of Natural Health Matters.
One of the myths that I've seen go around is as long as I'm taking a medication and I'm busy, I'm going to be fine. But it's not necessarily that. It's what else is going on in your body that is affecting you. Because if you're just fine, then you wouldn't need more and more medication, obviously. And so I talk about lifestyle changes. So I expound on that part where the doctor did not maybe have enough time to expound on.
Welcome to the Natural Health Matters podcast, where it's all about maximizing your health potential so that you can pursue the abundant life more effectively. I'm your host, David Sandstrom, naturopathic doctor and biblical health coach, and this is episode number 45. This episode is brought to you by U.S. Wellness Meats. Our bodies have to take what we eat and turn it into us. All of our 75 trillion cells are constantly being replaced through a series of divinely complex processes. If we don't give our bodies the raw materials they need to replace cells efficiently, they struggle. The number one rule for healthy eating is eat food as close to its God-given natural form as possible. The trouble is, when we shop at the grocery store, it's hard to find quality animal products produced the way God intended. Factory-farmed food is just not healthy for us. That's why I've been protecting my family's health for many years by shopping online with U.S. Wellness Meats. They deliver quality animal products straight to your door. They have pastured, grass-fed beef, free-range poultry, sustainably raised pork, raw cheese, and more. If you're ready to take your health to the next level with quality products, head on over to my website, davidsandstrom.com/resources. Click on the U.S. Wellness logo. You'll be supporting the show financially by using my affiliate link. You won't pay any more, and I get a small commission. Today we have Esther Onyoni on the show. For the last 13 plus years, Esther has practiced and advocated for patients as a results-focused and forward-thinking pharmacist. She has advanced knowledge in compounding, patient counseling, and medication fulfillment. Her curiosity to see how she can help individuals to heal instead of constantly being on medicine led her to become a certified health coach. Esther also believes individuals should be proactive participants in their healthcare. Esther, welcome to the Natural Health Matters podcast.
Thank you for having me here today.
It's my pleasure. I'm very curious to hear about your story. I always love having somebody on the show that's been trained in the traditional medical fashion as you are, and you have extensive training as a pharmacist. And then you made a transition saying, I think my patients could actually use more than what I got in school. And then you take the initiative on your own to get further your education so that you can be of more use for your patients. So tell us a little bit about that journey for you.
Well, not from the United States originally. I came to the United States after high school.
Where are you from?
I'm from Kenya.
Kenya. Okay, great.
Yes. So I've been here. I feel like I've grown up here because I've been here longer than I lived in Kenya. But just growing up, I had the dream of being a pharmacist, but I don't think I ever thought that it's something that would ever come possible for me because we had our own challenges, thinking about we don't have the money. We're not the kind of people who succeed in that area because of our socioeconomic standing, obviously. And so that's something that we put aside, and I didn't talk about it, but then the opportunity to come to the U.S. came in, and that opened up everything for me. So yes, I did go to school and be trained to be a pharmacist. So that's...
Where did you go to school?
I went to UNC Chapel Hill here in North Carolina, and have practiced for the past 14 years now.
That's a very well-respected school.
It is a proud Tar Heel. Yes, I've lived in the States as well, pretty much since I've been in the U.S. And so I've practiced as a pharmacist and have made my own observations, obviously, as far as how I became from a pharmacist to being a health coach. We trained in the conventional way to treat disease, any condition. Obviously, we're taught, okay, these are your symptoms. This is the treatment that goes with that. And that was clear and concise. You know the mechanisms of actions of the medications. And then in my practice, in the community setting as a pharmacist, I saw that patients who were diagnosed with diabetes, they just did not thrive as much as I gave them all that medication, because first they would get a diagnosis and then they would get a medication. And a couple months later, they'll be on a second one, maybe a third one. And then you wonder what else is next for them, because they are probably now on the 8th medication. And so that's how I thought about there's got to be more to
Yeah, let me interrupt you right there. That sounds like there's a term that people use sometimes. It's called polypharmacy. So someone gets on a medication and they have some side effects. So they go back to the doc and say, yeah, this thing actually was causing some nausea. Well, let me give you medication for the nausea.
Totally.
So then they get on that and then they say, well, yeah, but now this thing caused irritable bowel. Oh, let me give you something for that. So you get on this roller coaster of more and more medications. And what you end up doing is treating the side effects from the previous medication.
Completely my observation. And so that's completely what happened. And every time I saw this happen, because I had gotten familiar with some clients, I would think, okay, had we hit the reset button? Because sometimes it's not from seeing one doctor, it's probably several doctors, and they don't connect the dots and know that this is probably causing the other thing.
Yeah.
And I also, that's how I felt like, okay, it's got to be more that I could do here. And so I started going into learning about health coaching and functional medicine, which is more of getting to the root cause of their condition. How did they get here? Which is more of what I started being called to do.
Yeah.
Yes. And so as far as stepping forward to pursue that, I just remember growing up, it took a lot, basically, because growing up, I know that my parents argued a lot, and I felt like I'm too little, I can't interrupt, I cannot speak up. So it's kind of a pattern that followed me as I grew up, and I felt like I don't know how to speak up to these people. So it's something that was holding me back. So I had to recognize that and put myself to a place where I know that I can speak up, because I can see the problem, but I'm not taking a step. So then I decided to take a step and speak up. And I started consulting with these patients who had diabetes and teaching them about their condition, basically, that this is really what's happening. Yes, you are on medication and you definitely need to stay on medication. So I don't ever tell my patients to get off medication, but rather look at their condition and understand it so that they know what to do. Because
yeah, that's an important point. I want to interrupt you there and just add to that. And that is, if you're on a prescribed medication and you want to reduce and or get off of it, you've got to talk that over with your prescriber. You go to the healthcare practitioner that prescribed that medication, express your desire, and let them work with you on getting off that medication. People like myself, I can't give advice on medications. And I don't know, are the laws the same for a pharmacist?
Yes, because obviously they are on that medication for a reason. You cannot just step out of it and say, I'm no longer going to take it. But what you can do is empower them to know about their condition. And that way, when they know what to do, I know that, and they're able to keep up with that. They can easily get off their medication because their doctor will have seen the differences they have made, and they will be in a comfortable place to get off a medication if necessary.
And when you educate them, they'll be in a better position to have a more intelligent conversation with their prescriber.
Yes, absolutely. And that's more of where I concentrate on. So I go with why are you on a medication? It is definitely helping you lower your blood sugar, but why is it up there? So let's explore what's going on. I have seen clients say they don't know what to eat. Somebody called and said, I'm only eating lettuce and my blood sugar is elevated. And is this the only thing I can eat? So you could see how much education is needed there.
Yeah.
Somebody saying, so there is the food aspect of it, and then the part where they say that they don't need the medication, but they were diagnosed with a condition. So if they don't take it, it's going to get worse. And so you have to teach them around what the elevated blood sugar is doing to them. And that way they will get to the part where they know what to do, definitely take the medication, and then take their own initiative at home to help control the blood sugar.
So let me, Esther, let me interrupt you. So for the benefit of those listening, let's talk about what exactly diabetes is and talk about or fill in the gaps on how what the conventional treatment looks like. And then let's get into talking about what people can do about it. So explain for the listener that may not know exactly, well, yeah, I know I've heard the term diabetes, but what exactly is it? What's going on in their bodies?
Thank you. I get excited and start talking about it. I didn't even introduce the topic. Definitely, yes. So diabetes is when one is actually diagnosed with their blood sugar being elevated. And usually they have a term A1C that the doctor checks, so a series of labs that the doctor takes, A1C, fasting blood sugar. Those are all, if you've been diagnosed, you are familiar with those. But once you're diagnosed, there is always, in the conventional world, once you're diagnosed, your doctor will definitely tell you to watch what you eat, kind of mention the change your lifestyle aspect of it. But in the office setting, there's not usually a lot of time to expand on that. And so you also are given medication because there are guidelines on how to treat a condition or manage it. And if your blood sugar is at a particular level, you are either given medication or they wait and have you do something else at home. But then you definitely do get medication if it's at a particular level to help control it, because it's that important. So that's the conventional way. And then if it's not controlled, definitely in your next visit, you probably get another medication or whatever else is going on. So that, as we spoke earlier, that's kind of how it builds up to where you end up having polypharmacy. The conventional way of treating it kind of contributes to that, I would say.
So in a nutshell, I'll just summarize. Their body is having a hard time processing the carbohydrates they're eating, and they become insulin resistant. Our bodies release insulin to help bring our blood sugar down after a meal, but their insulin receptors are not responding the way they should. So as a result, their blood glucose level is spiking out of control, and they need some medical help to bring it back down. Am I right?
That's right.
Okay. So the conventional way to treat that is pharmaceuticals that will help control the blood sugar. Mm-hmm. So what do you tell your patients to come to you when they're on that?
Okay. First of all, yes, they'll take the medication. But then I know that when they're diagnosed, they are overwhelmed. Maybe they did not know what questions to ask of their doctor. They just went with what their doctor said. And when you get home, you have all these questions that come onto you, like the one I mentioned, what am I going to eat? Because I feel like I'm no longer able to eat anything. So when they come to me, then we look at what else can be done besides taking the medication, because one of the myths about that I've seen go around is, as long as I'm taking a medication and I'm busy, I'm going to be fine. But it's not necessarily that. It's what else is going on in your body that is affecting you, because if you're just fine, then you wouldn't need more and more medication, obviously. And so I talk about lifestyle changes. So I expound on that part where the doctor did not maybe have enough time to expound on. And I look at what else you can do at home. So there is, what are you eating? What's the plan for your eating? Obviously, that's a big problem for a lot of people. And then physical activity. So what do you love to do? We don't go into you have to work out 3 times a day or what kind of exercise you have to do. We start because obviously somebody at this point is overwhelmed, and maybe if you mention exercise, it's already thrown them off. They're already thinking maybe they need to overdo it or they don't like to do it at all. So we'll go with where can you start? And then we'll expand from there.
Is it your experience that most people that are diabetic are averse to the gym and exercise? Do they not have an exercise routine?
It's actually
when they come to you?
very general. It's everybody in terms of exercise. Everybody has. Now, they are not necessarily exercise averse. It's more of what else is going on in their life, because now they feel like they have to implement this if they were not doing it before, and they already have their own daily stresses, their routine that they have to deal with. And if they don't know how to approach it, it can be overwhelming and maybe something they don't want to do, even though we know that that's something that's going to be very beneficial to them at any level, even if they did just a little bit of it, or, it will be helpful to them.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question before it slips my mind. I know that type 1 diabetes is considered a disorder of the pancreas where you're not able to produce enough insulin. And that's generally it's considered an autoimmune disorder. But I've read in the research recently that they're calling type 2 diabetes autoimmune today. Do you agree with that?
Type 2 being autoimmune. Well, okay, so I haven't seen type 2, but I've seen something in the line of type 1.5.
Okay.
1.5, meaning after somebody's has got type 2 maybe for a while, and maybe if it's not under control, at the beginning you have the insulin resistance where there's so much insulin in your body, and then with time, with a lot of inflammation, obviously caused by a lot of sugar in your blood system, with time, your pancreas stops producing enough insulin. And it's also a process that can happen with aging. Less insulin is produced by the pancreas. And so I would say with that, somebody might have started taking medication and then now they are going to need insulin. And I think that's how it goes to being similar to type 1. So I don't know that I agree necessarily that it's autoimmune, but it does progress to where it can become type 1 because you become more insulin dependent if it's not well controlled.
Yeah. So it's your position that type 2 diabetes is more lifestyle related than it is genetic.
Yes. Actually, studies show it's more like 90% of it is lifestyle related and maybe 10% is genetic. So there is a genetic aspect of it. But as far as autoimmune, I think it's when it goes to the type 1.5.
Okay. So the lifestyle changes that people should make if they're on diabetes medication would be lower your sugar intake in your diet.
Lower the intake of their sugar, yes.
And I think that's an individual thing. Probably some people have more wiggle room than others. Exercise. What about fasting? What about time-restricted eating and intermittent fasting? Does that play a role?
It has shown to play a role, actually. They have different intervals, 16-8, the ones I've seen. The way it helps out is that when you're eating, your body produces insulin to keep your blood sugar under control. And it's just that it's shown that too much insulin in your body can cause your body to store fat and, just make diabetes worse. By fasting, you are kind of eliminating that, where you have these constant spikes of insulin, so that your insulin is probably higher when you eat, whenever you ate the last time, and then there is a long stretch where you don't have insulin spikes, and that keeps the pancreas more sensitive, and it makes the condition more controllable in that aspect because you're not having all these blood sugar spikes. So there is benefit to that.
Yes. So anything else? Any other lifestyle changes people should make?
Well, when you said eating less sugar, yes, that's true. And also just something that is easy to implement for sure. For instance, if you feel, I see a lot of people say it's expensive to eat healthy, but I would say, okay, try going to the freezer and a section of your grocery store and get the frozen veggies, not necessarily the packaged food, but the frozen, like the frozen peas and frozen veggies that you can cook at home. It makes it easy.
Single ingredient frozen vegetables. And you can get organic pretty reasonable that way.
Yes. And that way it doesn't feel expensive. It doesn't take a lot of time to prepare. I have a staple of just mixing onions and tomatoes and throwing in the veggie and it's ready to go. So it doesn't take long to cook and it still tastes great. I put some curry in it and it's good to go. So we definitely go with planning on what would be easy to do, because we know that this is not easy for people to pick up and change because they're already overwhelmed in the thought of, oh, I've been diagnosed. So they have to get past that, obviously. And then there is exercise for sure. And then we talk more about how much sleep they're getting, because obviously there have been studies showing that depending on how much rest you get, it affects how much insulin your body produces. So sleep, we address that. I literally go through a whole module of how much sleep, what are you doing, how can you increase it, what's causing you not to sleep, all of that. Because one of the major complaints I also hear about is I'm not able to sleep well because I have to make all these bathroom trips or I just can't sleep. Because of the blood sugar being high, your body's not able to rest well.
Yeah.
So we implement that and then we address stress. Like I said, being diagnosed is just one more thing that you have to deal with. And so we have to deal with the stresses through the day because we know that when someone is stressed, they produce this hormone called cortisol, which causes your blood sugar to go up. And that can, with constant stresses, that can keep it elevated. So can keep your blood sugar up and keep your condition not well controlled. And so by addressing stress, allowing somebody to see what they're able to let go, it makes it a bit easier to keep up with their own lifestyle that they are working on implementing.
Yeah, stress is huge. And I got to say this, and it's just going to be a shameless plug. Stress is not just having a difficult boss or a traffic jam. Stress goes far deeper than that. There can be hidden underlying infections that cause stress to the body. And microbes like a bacterial infection or a fungal infection or a parasitic infection, these cause chronic stress in our bodies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And those sometimes need to be addressed. And there's also the mental emotional component, but also the spiritual component. And I believe that we maximize our health potential when we align our lives more fully with God's design for spirit, mind, and body. God has a preference for our spirit, and he has a preference for our thought lives, and he has a preference for the way we treat our bodies. And when we align our lives more closely with that ideal, we reduce our stress on all levels of the human condition. And that's what I write about in my book, The Christian's Guide to Holistic Health. If that sounds of interest to you, I encourage you to pick up my book.
That's awesome.
So we have reduce sugar, exercise, practice intermittent fasting, work on your sleep, reduce your stress levels. Anything else?
One more I'd like to talk about is the toxins in the environment, because you'll be surprised, but the way I like to say it is, if you carried your healthy lunch to work, did you carry diabetes with you? Basically, one of the common toxins is the toxin in plastic, because we kind of like to pack our lunch in a beautiful plastic container. But it's been shown there's a compound called BPA, bisphenol A, and I see a lot of places where they write no BPA. But what it does is it's 34% of people who have prediabetes have been shown to have a lot of that toxin in their body. But what it does is it affects the pancreas. So maybe it makes it less or puts it into dysfunction, and that can trigger diabetes. So that's just one aspect of it. But, there's different other toxins in the house that we have to look at, what's in the food, to just make sure that it's not the one thing that triggers your diabetes.
Let me elaborate just a little bit more on BPA. BPA is found in plastic bottles. Most people know that. There is a plastic that's BPA free. The opaque plastic that's like a milk jug, that plastic is okay. I still wouldn't let it get hot, because anytime you heat up plastic, it starts to melt and you're making plastic tea. The least harmful plastic is the one found in the milk jug, the opaque kind of whitish plastic. Also, you'll find BPA inside of canned goods. Manufacturers will put BPA in there so that the flavor of the food is protected from the metal of the can. So that's another source of BPA that people don't think about. And it absolutely will attack the pancreas. That's a big problem.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yes.
So what are some of the mistakes people make? You talked about people feeling overwhelmed. So I guess, taking baby steps is important. But what mistakes do you see people making as they're trying to shift and make these lifestyle changes?
Definitely making these changes so drastically. I've met people who, after the diagnosis, would say, okay, since I was diagnosed, I go to the gym twice a day and I have stopped eating whatever it is. But this is too drastic, too fast, because you end up being burned out. You didn't get to this place overnight. In fact, it takes about 5 years before one is diagnosed with diabetes. So what one needs is a plan for success and a change in mindset, because taking these drastic changes, and if you get burned out, you easily stop taking care of your condition, because now you do feel hopeless.
Right. You give up. You get overwhelmed.
And then not knowing the triggers of your diabetes. So luckily for someone who's diagnosed, sometimes they'll have or most of the time, they have a blood glucose meter. And so they know to check their blood sugar depending on their activity. So, and they will know if they worked out, how it affected their blood sugar. They will know if they ate something, how it affected their blood sugar, or whatever they're doing, how it affects them. So just knowing what their trigger is important. And I think just even using their blood glucose meter helps them know that.
So what you're saying is it's more than just the food you eat. You can have a stressful event. Maybe it's an argument with your spouse that will cause that cortisol release that will spike your blood sugar as well.
Yes. And worse enough, if it's constant, then you have this chronic release and keeping your condition out of control.
Yes. So pursue peace.
Totally. And then just knowing that you're your own advocate, because so kind of changing mindset quickly will help. Because otherwise, if you stay in denial and do the same thing continuously, it just gets worse.
Yeah. You said something earlier, and I want to go back to this. You said that you felt called to become a health coach. That sounds to me like there's a faith component there. Tell me, what did that calling feel like to you?
More like I need to stand up, because like I said, first of all, the part where just growing up and not feeling like I could stand up for myself, and just looking deeper inside of me and going, if today was the last day on this earth, what will I say I've done, or what will I regret not having done? And I feel like just me standing up and saying that this needs to change would make me really happy. So I go out and talk to people whenever about whichever topic they want to know. In my social media, definitely I do weekly lives about different topics in diabetes, because it makes me feel like, yes, I have stood up and I have told you that there is something more to this. So it fills my heart. It's probably how I would describe it.
That's excellent.
Because I feel like I did not sit and let that, go to waste, because I've seen how I feel like telling people, okay, stop, let's hit the reset button. But obviously I can't tell that to everybody. But if I tell them this is the other side of what's going on, it fills my heart.
Yes, it floats your boat. I love it. There was a great book out a number of years ago by Stephen Covey. It's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And there was a memorable story he shared in there. He said, imagine when it comes to your life purpose, imagine you're going to a funeral and you're going to hear people speak about the deceased. And there's going to be a coworker. There's going to be someone from the community at large, and there's going to be a family member. And imagine the kinds of things that you'd like to hear about the person in the casket. You probably wouldn't want to hear, man, he was a great salesman. Man, could he sell those, whatever it was. That's probably not what you want to hear. What you'd rather hear is, man, did he or she know how to love? This person knew how to put the other person first. Mm-hmm. Those kinds of things. Now, he says, imagine the person in the casket is you 3 years from now. What would you like to do between now and then to cause people to say the right things about you at your funeral? Mm. Those are the things that are going to, make you come alive. And those are the things you should probably be working on. And it sounds like you've done that.
Oh, I'm working on it. And I feel like, I feel like every time I do it, I get more people asking, what can I do about this? What can I do about that? So there is a lot of curiosity. And I've noticed that even just the statistics showing how the condition, more people will be diagnosed with the diabetes in the future. And it's not just in the US, it's worldwide. So I know that different places are being affected. And that's by the different people who have reached me to say, okay, what do I do about this? And that tells me where I need to get involved, what I need to talk about. So it's a very fun journey.
Yes. Yeah, I can see that you love it. Esther, are there any other lifestyle factors that you'd like to add into the mix?
They need to first love the verb decide, because if you have decided, then you'll definitely do a lot more things, because this is coming from a place where you're empowered to do things for yourself. And then I'm running a series where we learn about simple things to do, simply deciding to hydrate normally on a regular basis, hydrate. It's a simple decision that will change a lot for you. Then choosing an activity you enjoy. That's simple because it's something you're going to stick with because you enjoy it. It can be as simple as walking to your mailbox. And no matter what, don't do it alone because lonely wolves starve to death. So definitely get some support because it's always available, and just be kind to yourself.
That's all great advice. I love it.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So if people wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach you?
Currently, I do a lot of social media. So I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn. And I do have an email, eonyoni@gmail.com. And then
spell that out.
Onyoni. So EONYONI@gmail.com. And they could go to my website, thewellnesspathfinders.com. And I call it that because I feel like when you're getting to a place where you put yourself first and you have decided that this is where you want to go, you are really headed to being very well. And this is the path you want to go. So I call it the Wellness Pathfinders.
That's great. Love it. And you have a Facebook group in there as well, right?
I do have a Facebook group. If you want to learn more about different topics in diabetes, I'm talking about COVID-19 tomorrow. I have talked about curbing your cravings. I've talked about reversing diabetes. Controversial. It's called Kick Diabetes to the Curb. Let's get to the bottom of it. It's not just the medicine, but it's more of what else is going on with your body. If you want to learn, that's where you go.
Okay. Esther, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Please keep in mind that this show is brought to you by U.S. Wellness Meats, producers of the highest quality, pastured, grass-fed, and grass-finished beef, free-range poultry, sustainably raised pork, raw cheeses, and more, all delivered straight to your door. You can find them by going to my website, davidsandstrom.com/resources, and click on the U.S. Wellness logo, and you'll be redirected to their website by way of my affiliate link. When you make a purchase that way, you'll be financially supporting this podcast. You won't pay any more, and they share a small commission with me. So check them out. You won't be disappointed. For more, go to davidsandstrom.com. In the show notes for each episode, you'll find links to all the resources that were mentioned, as well as a full transcript with timestamps that you can download for free. In addition, I always include a content upgrade with each show, which is a free download that is designed to help you go deeper with that subject. Once again, thank you for listening, and I'll talk with you next week. Be blessed.